The air was gone. The screams had stopped. There was only the low groan of dying metal and the bitter cold of space seeping in. Leo Cruz pulled himself through the dark corridor. His legs screamed with every move. A piece of metal was stuck deep in his thigh. Around him, his crew lay still. Their faces were pale in the emergency lights. He knew them all. He had fixed their coffee machines and their bunk heaters. Now he stepped over their frozen bodies. The ship, the Forge Hammer, was a tomb. The enemy had come without a word. Their ship, the Nemesis, was a silent black blade that had cut them apart. It had moved too fast. Their weapons had been useless. It was not a battle. It was a slaughter. Leo's mission was simple. Had to get to the main communications room. The ship was dead, but the long-range transmitter had its own backup power. He had to send a message. It's not for help. It was too late for that. He had to send what he knew. He reached a heavy door. It was sealed shut. He used his good leg to kick the manual release. The door slid open with a painful shriek. The comms room was a mess of broken glass and sparking wires. One console still glowed. He fell into the chair. His hands moved on the screen, pulling up the ship's final combat logs. He had seen it in the last seconds of the fight, a flicker in the enemy's shield. A tiny window of time when their main gun was recycling, a 1.2-second gap. It was nothing. But it was everything. He started the recording. His voice was rough. "This is Chief Engineer Leo Cruz of the Earth Federation vessel Forge Hammer. We are lost, but I am sending our core data. The enemy has a weakness. Listen." An alarm blared. A red light flashed on his panel. The Nemesis was back. It was turning for the kill shot. Leo typed faster. Attached the data files. He set the destination to the nearest Federation listening post. He hit the transmit button. The console lit up. Power surged from the last reserves. The message shot out into the void. He slumped back, waiting for the end. He watched the Nemesis on the scanner. Its main gun began to glow. Then, a small sound. Ping. His console screen flickered. A new message appeared in green text. "Transmission received. Acknowledged." Leo stared. It was not the Federation response code. The identifier was wrong. The signal had been picked up by a station called Warden. He knew that name. It was from an old training manual. A deep space monitoring station. It had been declared dead and gone 50 years ago. The Nemesis fired. A beam of pure white energy slammed into the Forge Hammer. The ship tore apart around him. Metal ripped. Fire bloomed in the vacuum. Leo was thrown from his chair. The world became noise and light and pain. Then nothing. The command center on Earth was a tomb of quiet voices and flickering screens. The big holographic map showed the war. Red dots were enemy positions, moved closer to Earth with every hour. Fewer blue dots, their own ships were left. Admiral Frank Perry stood with his hands behind his back. He watched a blue dot vanish near Jupiter. He did not flinch. His face was hard. "The line at Mars is our last chance," he said to the room. "We stop them there, or we die here." In a small, dark room deep underground, Maya Curie stared at her own screen. She was a signal analyst. Or she had been. Now she was being punished. Her job was to look through old data, useless noise from dead satellites. It was busy work. It was meant to break her spirit. She sipped cold coffee. Her screen showed a list of old signal logs. Most were junk, but one line caught her eye. It was a signal receipt confirmation. It was from a station called Warden. The timestamp matched the final moments of the Forge Hammer. Maya sat up straight. Warden was a ghost. It was a story from the early days of space. A deep space station lost in a quasar field. Officially, it was scrap metal 50 years ago. She pulled up a star chart. She plotted the signal's origin point. The map confirmed it. The signal had come from the heart of the debris field. A place no ship could go. A place no station could survive. Her heart beat faster. This was not a ghost. This was real. She took the data to her boss, Commander Holt. His office was clean and bright. He looked at her with tired eyes as she explained. Holt listened. Then he smiled a thin, cold smile. "The Forge Hammer's systems were failing, Curie. You found a ghost echo. A damaged satellite bouncing an old identifier. It happens. But the location Maya started is impossible, Holt finished. He stood up. You were digging in the wrong places. Again, his voice was quiet but sharp. You are confined to quarters for bypassing security protocols. Again, leave the data, Maya. Felt a hot anger in her chest. She turned and left. 2 security guards walked her to her small room, the door locked behind her. Alone, she sat on her bed. Holt was wrong. She knew it. He was not a stupid man. So why was he acting like one? She pulled a small personal data pad from under her mattress. It was not supposed to be here. She had built it from spare parts. She tapped into the building's internal comms network. It was a risk. If they caught her, it would mean prison. She found Holt's private channel. She listened. At first, there was nothing. Then a voice. Holt was talking to someone. A woman. The warden signal is confirmed, Holt said. The cruise boy found a weakness, and he contacted Vance. The woman's voice was calm and cold. Elias Vance is a myth, a story for frightened soldiers. He is real, Holt insisted. And if he has that data, the entire project is at risk. You can't let the fleet have it. You can't let them have hope. There is no hope, Commander. Only the inevitable. Your role is to manage the transition. Ensure the SOS from the Forge Hammer dies with its sender. And find Vance. Silence him, I understand, Holt said. The line went dead. Maya sat in the silence of her room. Her hands were cold. She had just heard a death sentence. Not for a ship, but for Earth. And her own boss had signed it. The escape pod was a freezing metal coffin. Leo Cruz floated in the darkness. His breath came in white puffs. The pain in his leg was a dull, constant throb. The small viewport showed only stars and the twisted wreckage of the Forge Hammer. He had woken up here. He did not remember getting in. It must have been instinct. A last, desperate act. A low beep came from the control panel. The life support system was failing. Oxygen at 15%. He had minutes left. Then a new light blinked on the scanner. A ship. It was not the Nemesis. This one was older, its shape strange and uneven. It looked like it had been built from scraps of other ships. It moved silently through the debris, ignoring the broken pieces of the Forge Hammer. It came straight for his pod. A voice crackled over his comms. It was rough and dry. Pod 7. This is Calcine Warden. Transmit your authorization code. Leo's mind was foggy. Warden. The ghost. The one who heard his call. He fumbled with the comms unit, recited the old command codes he had used on the Forge Hammer, the codes he had learned from a history file. There was a long silence. Then the voice returned. Code accepted. Prepare for docking. The old ship moved closer. A docking tube extended from its side. It connected to his pod with a solid clang. The airlock door of his pod hissed open. Leo pushed himself through. He fell onto a cold metal floor. The air smelled of oil and old machinery. He looked up. An old man stood over him. His face was lined with deep wrinkles. His eyes were a pale, piercing blue. They held no warmth, only a deep and weary knowledge. This was Elias Vance. Behind him stood others. A woman with a scar across her cheek. A tall man with one mechanical arm. They were all silent. They watched him without expression. Vance offered a hand and pulled Leo to his feet. Your data is good, engineer, Vance said. The weakness is real, but your Federation ships are too slow, too clumsy. They cannot use it. Leo leaned against the wall, his leg buckling. Then it is useless. We lose. Vance shook his head slowly. No. The lesson from your ship was the first. Your next lesson begins now. He pointed to a large viewport. They are still hunting you. Outside, the black shape of the Nemesis turned. Its smooth, dark hull gleamed in the starlight. It had found them. It began to move toward the old ship, its weapons starting to glow with a deadly green light. Maya Kiri's hands were shaking. She sat on the floor of her locked room, the stolen datapad glowing in her lap. She had just heard treason. Commander Holt was not just wrong, he was a traitor. He was helping the enemy win. She had to tell someone. But who? Holt was a high-ranking officer. He had friends. If she sent a general alert, his people would find it. They would silence her. She thought of Admiral Perry. He was old, tough, and he loved the fleet. He was their best chance. But how to reach him? His personal channels were locked down tight. Then she remembered an old file from her early training. A history of the first deep space missions. It mentioned Perry. He had a partner back then, a brilliant engineer named Elias Vance. They were close, at a private secure channel, a relic from their early days. A channel no one else would know. It was a crazy risk. The channel probably did not even exist anymore. She had no other choice. Her fingers flew across the pad. She dug deep into the network, using codes she was not supposed to know. She found it. A deadline, buried under layers of old systems. It was still there, silent for decades. She compiled everything. The recording of Holt's conversation, the warden signal data, the star chart. She added a single line of text, a warning from one ghost to another. Asterisk, the shepherd is a wolf. The flock is blind. Asterisk, she took a deep breath and sent the data burst. The pad showed a single word. Transmitted. She leaned back against the wall, her heart pounding. It was done. Across the base, in the main war room, Admiral Perry watched the large tactical display. The last of their ships were gathering for the final stand at Mars. He felt the weight of every life on his shoulders. A soft chime sounded in his ear. His private ancient comms unit, a device he had not used in 20 years. He frowned and tapped it. A data file appeared on his small wrist-mounted screen. He read Maya's message. He saw the evidence. He listened to Holt's voice betraying them all. His blood ran cold. The betrayal was here, in this very room. He looked at the other officers around the table. Their faces were grim, determined. One of them was a wolf. He did not show any reaction. His face remained a stone mask. He turned to the room. New orders. His voice was calm and strong. The Mars defense is a trap. The enemy knows our position. We change course. All ships will proceed to these coordinates. He typed new numbers into the console. The destination was not Mars. It was an empty point of space near a dead moon. A junior officer looked up, confused. "Sir, that's a dead zone. There's nothing there." "There is now," Perry said. "Execute the order." He nodded to the head of his security detail, a man named Joe, who stood by the door. 8. It was a silent command to lock down the room. Joe moved, his hand resting on his sidearm. But instead of securing the door, he walked toward the Admiral, his expression unreadable. The other guards moved with him, their eyes fixed on Perry. The old ship, the Pale Horse, was not built for a stand-up fight. It was built to hide. But Leo Cruz was now wired into its systems. His hands moved across the console. He saw the Nemesis not as a ship, but as a pattern of energy. He saw the 1.2-second gap. "Now," he said, his voice tight. The Pale Horse shot forward. It was not fast in a straight line, but it could turn like a nightmare. It dodged a blast from the Nemesis's main gun. Enemy ship was bigger, stronger, and faster, but it was predictable. Leo guided the pilot, a woman named Lena. Its shields are cycling down in 3, 2, 1. Lena fired a single low-powered pulse. It was not meant to damage. It was a signal. The other small ships of the Forgotten, quick and quiet, swarmed the Nemesis. They did not attack its hull. They aimed for its engine nozzles and its comms array. They fired precise cutting beams. On the Nemesis's bridge, alarms blared. Their engines lost power. Their communications went dead. They were trapped, a giant beast stung into silence by a swarm of hornets. The main Stygian armada waited. Their ships were a wall of dark metal, ready to crush the last of the Earth fleet. Their commander watched his screen. The Nemesis had gone quiet. This was not part of the plan. Then the Earth fleet arrived, but they did not come to the Mars line. They appeared on the edge of the Stygian formation, near a dead moon. They were not in a defensive posture. They were attacking a massive, unguarded structure. Stygian Supply Depot. The depot's fuel and weapons began to explode in a chain reaction of silent fire. The Stygian commander snarled. His perfect formation broke. Ships turned to defend their supplies. The battle became a chaotic brawl. In the middle of the chaos, the Pale Horse arrived, towing the powerless Nemesis like a captured animal. Elias Vance opened a channel. He did not broadcast to the enemy commander. He broadcast to every single person on every Stygian ship, sent a simple data file. It was not a weapon. It was a memory. He showed them files they had never seen, Security footage from decades ago. They saw themselves as children. Were not chosen. They were taken. They saw their real families. They heard their real names. The screen showed medical reports. The augmentations were not gifts. They were experiments. They were tools to make them obedient soldiers. On the bridge of the Stygian command ship, the admiral watched his perfect crew. He saw a young weapons officer look up from her screen. Her face was pale. She was looking at a picture of a woman she did not know, a woman who was her mother. The admiral reached for his sidearm. "Maintain discipline," he ordered. The young officer did not look at him. She looked at the soldier next to her. His hands were shaking. He was looking at his own file. The first sound was not an explosion. It was the sharp crack of a gunshot inside the command ship. It was not fired by the admiral. It was fired by one of his own guards, aiming at another. The truth was a virus, and the ship was now infected. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see which side the soldiers would choose.